you want? What do you want? When do you need it?
Right now.
What do you want? When do you need it?
Right now.
When do you need it?
Right now.
What do you want?
Climate justice.
What do you want?
Climate justice.
What do you want?
Right now.
Lie.
Right now.
What do you want?
Climate justice. Right now.
What do you want?
Climate justice.
What do you want?
Climate justice.
What do you want?
Climate justice.
When do you need it?
Right now.
When do you need it?
Right now.
What do you want?
Our first panelist from my family, that is Saint Ampindi Sayan, the communication officer for National Environment Agency. And then we have, after him, we have, Benita Sayan, who is also Secretariat. Then also we have Mr. Oman Ayak, who is a Brazilian advocate and yes. So I think I will allow Benita Sayan to do that. Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, so
good morning to you all. We appreciate that we are all here. And as we all know, today we are launching the Banjul Week of Action on Climate Justice and Keep Your Promise campaign. And I will start with appreciating the media representatives, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon to you all. Good day, everybody and everywhere. Allow me to extend greetings from Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance and on behalf of Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance and Young Volunteers for the Environment, the Gambia, serving as the National Designated Platform Secretariat of Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, Banjul. It is with pleasure to have you. I would like to thank you all for joining us today for the launch of our Banjul Week of Action on Climate and Keep Your Promise campaign, Road Hope to 28, Dubai, and stakeholders consultation forum supported by Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance in collaboration with the National Environment Agency, NEA, and Gambia Environment Alliance, GEA, based in the Gambia. Ladies and gentlemen, few days remain for parties and global stakeholders to convey in the United Arab Emirates, Dubai, from 30th November to 12 December 2023 at the 28th United Nations Climate Change Conference session, COP28, an historical core of accountability where parties will all assess the progress made in reducing the global warming. COP28 takes place at a time the global south, particularly Africa, is traversing through unprecedented adverse impact of climate change that have caused the loss of billions of dollars without forgetting lives of Africans and their livestock at the expense of droughts, floods, and others. As it is a major goal, it is critically reasons the real implementation of 2015 Paris Climate Agreement at the COP26 Glasgow Climate Pact and COP27 Sharm el-Sheikh implementation. The main COP28 agenda will be loss and damage, climate finance, and just energy transition partnership. It's worth remembering that climate science shows that the current emissions and the global warming projections are reaching catastrophic proportions and levels, particularly in greenhouse gases emissions, whereby last year, 2022, the warming level reached to 1.15 degrees Celsius. Ladies and gentlemen, in today and in all the upcoming days of our country action, it is ensure your active participation in this consultation forum in order to promote transparency and effective civil society engagement to urgently evaluate focus and prioritization, in particular, the nationally determined contribution, that is the NDC, general and specific status in the Gambia. Also, Gambia recent national contribution, in particular, a critical postmortem and a deep analysis on adaptation contribution, mitigation contribution, and also the Gambia's critical gaps, weakness, and discrepancy calibrating the ambition gaps, budgetary gaps, policy gaps, leadership gaps, organizational and planning gaps, technical resilience and expertise gaps, human resource mobilization gaps, non-human resource mobilization gaps, and finally the critical role of cities and urban content in climate change mitigation. This process and your input in particular are great value by the Gambian people. I want to be clear, this is the time of action and without nature's help, we will not thrive or even survive. For too long, we have been waging a senseless and a suicidal war on our nature both in Gambia and other parts of Mother Earth. The result is three interlinked environmental crises: climate disruption, biodiversity loss, and pollution that threaten our viability as a species. They are caused by unsustainable production and consumption. Human well-being lies in protecting the health of the planet. It's time to re-evaluate and reset our relationship with nature and correct our political and development decisions. Today, around the world, we are overexploiting and degrading the environment on land and sea. The atmosphere and the ocean have become dumping grounds for our waste, and governments are still paying more to exploit nature than to protect it. Globally, countries spend some $4 to $6 trillion a year to subsidize that damage the environment. The interlinked climate, biodiversity, and pollution carries required urgent action from the whole of society, from government, but also from international organizations, from businesses, cities, and individuals. We are in a climate crisis that has largely been caused by more industrialized economies, but the worst impacted people are the people whose infrastructure is still in development, like our country, the Gambia, Africa. A country with a developing economy endowed with abundant natural resources stand at a crossroads where strategic financial investment can steer its trajectory towards a prosperous, climate resilient future. Our country, the Gambia, is vulnerable to the impacts of climate change from increase in temperature, decrease in rainfall, and sea level rise. This affects the country's key economic sector, such as the agricultural sector, which is dominated by extensive rain-fed agriculture, as well as the tourism sector. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the narrative this year from the just concluded African Climate Summit, the ACS, and its resulting Nairobi Declaration, which has resonated well globally, positioned Africa not as a victim of climate impact, but rather a key player in the global climate narrative, willing to contribute its vast resources to drive climate positive growth. In exchange, the world must commit to its right time of financial resources at the right scale, as well as innovative technologies to help unlock the raw potential the continent has. This will not only mitigate environmental risks, but also stimulate economic growth and create employment opportunities. The world requires a new quantum of capital to meet its climate challenge, which must be governed by its climate priorities and not by shareholding interests. The investment must be driven by the impact of climate and not by underlying economic factors. This requires a collaborative approach from government, private sectors, and international entities, as demonstrated at the African Climate Summit. The global community must take their commitments and pledges and turn them into real outcome to drive climate positive growth on the continent while unlocking solutions for the world. The Gambia and other African countries' major economic sectors are vulnerable to current climate sensitivity, with huge economic impact And this vulnerability is exacerbated by existing developmental challenges such as endemic poverty, complex governance and institutional dimensions, limited access to capital, including market, infrastructure, and technology, ecosystem degradation, and complex disaster and conflict. These, in turn, have contributed to the Africa's weak adaptive capacity, increasing the continent's vulnerability to project climate change. We have witnessed recent how our farmers have developed several adaptation options to cope with current climate variability. But such adaptations may not be sufficient to future change of climate. We are all aware now that climate change is the biggest challenge we face in the world today. Everywhere we see its impact and people are struggling with the devastating effects in their daily lives for African countries. This is becoming more challenging every year. Even though they are historically least responsible for causing climate change, the African region is hit hardest by its consequences. The most important decisions regarding climate action are often made by those who do not feel the biggest impact and who generally have better capabilities to deal with climate change themselves. Not everyone affected by climate change is able to make their voice heard in the decision-making processes. When it comes to climate policies, within the Western nation, questions of climate justice are rarely prioritized. Within many other policies areas, there is often little coherence between climate promises and policies due to the lack of regard of the consequences they have on marginalized groups elsewhere. African perspectives were additionally not sufficiently taken into account. Make no mistake, the effect of climate change on Africa are happening right in front of our eyes. Climate change is devastating Africa, causing floods and billions of dollars in damage each year. Small-scale farmers in Africa are being ravaged by unpredictable weather caused by climate change. The effects of climate change in Africa means that some part of the continent will be harvesting 30% less food in the next 10 years. In some part of the continent, the effects of climate change on Africa means that the average temperature has already exceeded the 1.5 degrees Celsius global benchmark. We must be aware that burning fossil, selling or destroying our forests are accelerating climate change in Africa. So climate justice for Africa is an appeal to political sector worldwide to care about the generation, unsustainable farming practices, limited awareness, non-viability of seed and seedlings for tree planting activities, limited by youth engagement, are over dependence on forests and forest resources for subsistence, especially in rural communities, thus leading to the destruction of the biophysical structure of land and an increased susceptibility to the climate and ecological crisis. We really appreciate the support of civil society for our key calls on COP28. We urge developed countries to fulfill their pledges in relation to climate and development finance and deliver to their commitments to double adaptation finance, in particular to Africa. I want to thank my fellow activists and all the organizations that are standing by the most vulnerable regions and groups. We will continue to raise the demand of Africa as a continent with special needs and circumstances, ensuring the prioritization of adaptation, loss and damage, and climate finance in the negotiation at the COP28. Today, as part of our effort to amplify our voices, we are glad to kickstart the Banjul Week of Action on Climate Justice and Keep Your Promise campaign, Road to COP28 Dubai campaign, aims to mobilize and galvanize voices of the vulnerable communities. Our campaign is an act of unity, of collective action that makes visible the experiences and knowledge of diverse communities adapting to climate change. COP28. COP28 is only a moment, but what Keeps Your Promise campaign seeks is to create a long-term connection between climate justice movement, whether they are women-affected communities, rural or urban youth. We want to demonstrate the strength of our movement to push for our government to play their part. The Banjul Week of Action on Climate Justice and Keep Your Promise campaign seeks to organize mass mobilization of citizens and key stakeholders and local communities across the country, demonstrating solidarity between the climate and development movement and showing how everyone is affected by climate change and demanding leaders to address climate crisis in an unprecedented way. I apologize. The multi-stakeholder forum will enable all of us in focusing on how to integrate ambitious actions across key economic sectors in national planning and on adapting to climate risks and building resilience into development strategies. We believe climate action goes beyond a simple energy transition. We must take a holistic, cross-sectoral, economic-wide approach with multi-stakeholder engagement to the transition of societies and economy to a more sustainable future. Finally, we need to find it to the attention of the public that our nations are burning on the front line of a planet on fire. Once more, IPCC now says the 1.5 will happen in 2030. Therefore, we must also constantly strengthen our adaptation ambition to keep pace with the climate emergency. So the annual platform needs to encompass adaptation and also not only mitigation. The current text of finance needs such strengthening in the coming days. There are no excuses for the $100 billion climate finance to not be met already in 2022, given the missing of these goals so far. Delivery over the whole period of 2020 to 2024 must be assured, which means $500 billion in balance climate finance mobilized over this period is even a low bar given how big the actual financing needs for climate action of developing countries. Furthermore, we are calling for independent annual monitoring of the implementation of finance delivery, which also needs to be reflected in the outcome. This will help strengthen confidence by finance in ongoing and scaling of adaptation finance to the promised balance levels in humanitarian urgency at this point. I would like to reiterate that the COP28 needs to take practical steps to explore concrete financial options for loss and damage, since it is not part of the $100 billion support. The absence of strong enough adaptation and mitigation action means vulnerable communities mainly suffer loss and damage. Without financial support, little can be done to minimize damaging effects for vulnerable communities around the world. Likewise, this COP needs to ensure that from COP28 onwards, loss and damage be made a standing item at every COP, as it is a stand-alone and truly vital article of the Paris Agreement. I thank our civil society partners, the government of the Gambia today, and the members of the media for their attention. We need to act to leave this world better than we got it. Thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, making that sign. It's our secretariat, really strong secretariat. They always, want to cover the entire scope of the whole program. So I think that was amazing. So wanted to call our panelists, now that time to join us, please join our table, and I will just go back to my benchmark because I'm an MC, so so you know, I will have to see you. And then unfortunately we didn't have representative from Etna. And maybe I know whether it is here.
I just leave it there.
That's it, huh?
Yeah, just leave it there.
Okay. That was the representative from. So when I think we shall so that one is negotiate. No, it's good. I think we have two of this. So alright. So we now get into the discussion proper. So now you all finally see the skill. So what's what can we first of all we just wanted that into discussion proper concerning our national design foundation. I know we have to get the work NGC. So it will help us, to also understand what are some of the gaps, what do we think is really missing as a nation. So based on their own understanding of the NDC, so each of them is on what they talk about based on agriculture or based on how they affect the environment based as a youth what do you think the NDC based on education. Also, we have I think you talk about more about those areas as well, how education can also support it, and how knowledge I will talk about as a youth negotiator or as a young man advocate. What do you think that the government is really missing out as far as this is concerned? And I will also do the same thing as it is youth negotiation. So I'll first start with Mr. How do you call it, Mr. Manya. He will take us through the dimension and NDC to agriculture because he's a young farmer that is really inspiring all of us, to endeavor to become a farmer, not only to say that farming, but we call it adult.
We will call it Abi and Dauda. I'm very happy to sit before this august gathering to share the real empirical evidence that the farmers are facing in connection to NDC. So, all in all, the global agreement towards mitigation approaches, you realize that the Gambia is also doing a very good job in terms of agreeing to that global agreement. Coming from farming background, there are loopholes that we feel that the Gambia government should also try looking into in order to have the world that is habitable for both farmers and any other individual to comfortably live in their earth. So one of those things is that considering the climate agreement, putting it to have 1.5 degrees Celsius. But now, as read by our Honorable Secretary, you realize that that has been exceeded. Now we have realized the global emission has reached to a stage of 1.15 degrees Celsius. And this is a threat to the farming community for the fact that CO2, emission of CO2 at that exorbitant amount affect the development of crops. And if that is done, the food security, the food sovereignty will also put at stake. You take an example. You all know that CO2 is that greenhouse gas that absorbs a lot of heat. And if that happens, the global warming must increase. If that happens, the crops have required number of temperatures. If that exists, you realize that the physiological development will be affected. And again, we've also realized that there are a lot of post-harvest loss. And when farmers produce their crops, the environment becomes no more friendly to keep them for a long period of time. So you can see that emission also has an effect with the number of produce that we produce and the qualities as well. And again, people living from the coastal villages, as Alikinke alluded to earlier, that now the effect of glaciers, the glaciologists has projected that, in fact, when right measures are not put in place, the sea level rise, the 1 meter that we are talking about, will be increased. And of course, the community of Banjul or any other coastal community, we can be an empirical evidence to that. Go and see the level of sea level rise. Banjul is put at a threat, but not only Banjul, but of course all the communities, all the coastal communities. Of course, we have now seen the level of sea erosion and so on. So these are all empirical evidences that these gaps needs to be closed. Again, if you also looked at the level of biodiversity, some coastal communities are into total management, total hatchery, and so on. But because of this sea level rise, you realize that the suitable environment for total nesting and other biodiversity, they are all put into threat. So to put all these things in sum, you realize that the gaps that are left in our NDCs, we need proactive, not necessarily the delegates that will represent the Gambia to speak about the beautiful policies, the beautiful ideas, the beautiful programs. But now it's time for us to take action. What has been discussed, what the peasant farmers, the peasant artisan fishermen are talking about, we want the Gambian delegates to take that to corps level and then tell them this is what we are facing, and equally to put them at ransom that the loss and damage fund we definitely need for us to live in an harmonized environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You see, when we say that when these are basically on the ground, when they spoke, you yourself learn something because he's a farmer. He knows challenges that they are facing as a farmer. So I will also go ahead to our other panelists also, and then so that I know Mr. Alkindi have a lot to share with us.
For Action for Climate Empowerment and Gender. First of all, as you know, Action for Climate Empowerment is an initiative and a body under the UNFCCC, which aims at amplifying the voices of youth and integrating the climate change into the national curriculum. So as a youth advocate and a negotiator, I am here to emphasize the urgent need for preserving the 1.5 goal degree and strengthening adaptation and mitigation, loss and damage action in the Gambia. Climate change is threatening our nation's future, and we must act now. Despite the fact that it's not only Gambia that has signed up for the NDC, but other countries as well have signed up for the NDC. And for the previous record, I think Gambia happens to be on the track of NDC, which was a very big achievement for the Gambia. I can say it's not that we're achieving everything, but then looking at our NDC, our objectives and our goals that we have in our NDC, it has been something that Gambia is focused on working on to mitigate climate change in the country. As the last of the long-term climate change strategy, which is aimed at 2030, and then we have the green project as well, that is the solar energy, which also aims at 2030, making sure that we have more solar that we have in our NDC. It has been something that Gambia is focused on working on to mitigate climate change in the country. As the last of the long-term climate change strategy, which is aimed at 2030, and then we have the green project as well, that is the solar energy, which also aims at 2030, making sure that we have more solarized households in the country, so that we can also reduce the amount of emission that will be generated in the country, which all contributes to preserving the 1.5 degree goal and strengthening adaptation and mitigation in the Gambia. We need to prioritize adaptation strategies as well, reduce greenhouse gas emissions through mitigating efforts and address irreversible losses and damage caused by climate change. And as youth, we demand for action from our leaders and international communities to secure a sustainable future for the Gambia and for the globe at large, to protect our planet. And with regards to that, I will shed a bit light on the negotiation part when it comes to action to climate empowerment. For years, it is believed that climate change is something that we can have, despite the fact that we can have a lot of projects ongoing. But then the key, most important thing there is education. Are these people aware about climate change? What is their knowledge? Their knowledge about climate change is something that needs to be assessed. As my boss here says, the initiative, we also have the same initiative, catch them young. The younger generation should be taught. They should be well equipped with climate change. If not, they will go on with that ideology that they have. And it will be very difficult to eradicate some of the challenges that we are facing. So as Action for Climate Empowerment is concerned, we aim at integrating climate change into the national school curriculums in the country and other countries at large. So for the case of Gambia, the EVA project was also helping with MOXIE with regards to integrating climate change into our national curriculum. I've learned that they were in progress and that they also have a draft document that they did, but it is gradually going, I can say. But then the key as a youth advocate on the is, and my demand from my country and the government is to integrate climate change into our national curriculum. The kids that are growing up, they need to be aware, they need to be taught so that at least they can also guide their generation. So that is all about ACE, and then as the NBC is currently going, and then some of the efforts that are also being going by the government and civil society organizations, NGOs are doing extremely well to disseminate climate change, but it's still lacking. We still want it to be integrated in our curriculum, and that is something that has to be extremely to be worked on extremely. So on that note, I would say thank you all for your kind attention, and then look forward to seeing you all seated there tomorrow to be in the position that we are today. Each and everybody is a climate advocate. It's not just that you are seated at office or you're doing the work. No, it has to be individual based. It's something that you have to put in mind. Our environment is everybody's concern, not individual. So as a young individuals seated today, it is your responsibility to preserve and protect your environment in a way that you can, so that you can also, so that your younger ones also can learn from these consequences that we are facing. And I believe as Gambia, inshallah, as youth, collaboratively, and as a government, we work hand in hand to make sure that we put our voices at hand to give out our witnesses, and so that they can know what really we are demanding for, so that the youth can also have their voices at stake. So I would like to say thank you all. This is just a brief of what I would like to share with you all. Thank you so much.
Negotiating with the government before I could become a negotiator, because it is not easy to become a negotiator, because what it means is if I am a negotiator on behalf of the Gambia, when I go to COP, whatever I say is the view of the Gambians. So in becoming a negotiator, sometimes it can take years. I've only attended my first COP last year, so this will be my second, inshallah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to being attached to one of our senior negotiators, to learn from them as we also grow up to becoming negotiators. Thank you so much. And I think I'll just speak from where I've been started. But last year, we have been rated, I don't know whether last year or year before last, as the only country or one of the few countries that is compatible with the Paris Agreement. And what that means is Gambia is on the right track in terms of meeting the 1.5 degrees Celsius Paris Agreement. But if you look at it, when you go back to the climate tracker that has actually rated the Gambia to that level, if you look at the their review on the Gambia in this particular year that we are, it is saying that we are not entirely now compatible with the Paris Agreement. And there are some few things that they've actually highlighted. Last year we were compatible, but this year, if you look at our overall rating, we are almost sufficient. So what that means is, in as much as we are not entirely compatible, but we are not also deviating that much. So we are almost sufficient. And if you look at our policies and actions, Gambia, when it comes to policies, we are always on top there. In fact, when you go outside, Gambia's NDC is one of the best in the world, I've been told. We have one of the best NDCs. So when it comes to putting the policies together, we are always top in that because we hire top, people to come and draft these policies for us. But mostly our problem is how do we really put these policies into action. But if you look at our actions and policies, the climate tracker is saying Gambia is totally compatible when it comes to that. That is where we have agreed. So if you look at our conditional NDC target, these are the NDC targets that we implement relying on the support that we actually get from outside. And then we talked about the loss and damage fund here, the 100 billion commitment that the developed world has committed to Africa. So depending on that, if we have that support, some of the things that we want to, the targets that we have in our NDC that we want to implement. So if you look at that, we are also almost sufficient with that. So on conditional NDCs, that is the NDCs that the targets that we aim to achieve without relying on any external support, we are compatible according to the climate tracker. When it comes to climate finance, not applicable. So it means there is a huge gap when it comes to climate finance. And this is not only felt by the government, but even us, the civil society. Sometimes if we really want to implement some of our brilliant ideas, our innovations and so on, we have to be moving from here and there. I've gone to a point where I don't even go to NEA anymore. And it's not NEA's problem. It's not like NEA doesn't have money. It doesn't want to give us money, but they don't have money. NEA itself doesn't have money. NEA itself is struggling to implement some. It's not because I think he's here and I'm trying to praise him also. But this is the problem. The government does not pump a lot of money into what we are really advocating for, that's climate action, environmental protection, and so on. The budget is very minimal, so it becomes a problem. In as much as they are mandated to protect our environment, to work with us to implement some of these projects and programs, if the finances are not there, then it becomes a challenge. And this is something we are faced with in terms of our NDC implementation. And it looks like it's just a coincidence. It's just this very morning that I myself and Abby had a meeting with the minister where we were presenting our national youth statement from the local conference of youth. I think some of you were part of this. And this is a conference where we brought together over 150 young Gambians to discuss some of the things that we think we could do as young people to complement government support in terms of building resilience across our country. So this document has been put together as a policy document that makes recommendations and demands to the central government to say, this is what young people think that the government should do in terms of promoting resilience in our country. So we presented this document to the minister this morning, and she said, our NDC, as much as we are on track, the challenges is going to be with the coordination and the finances. She said that this very morning, and she is very right. If you look at the climate tracker, this is what we are talking about. There are some initiatives that are really going on in the country, but how do we coordinate to ensure that we actually measure some of these things? Let's say we are talking about cutting our emissions, and then there are a lot of solar projects that are going on. But who is there to record these things? When somebody just goes to the market and just buy the solar and fix it in their homes. So how do we coordinate ourselves? How do we put in a system where if someone buys a solar and they install it, that is really recorded? Because all of this data is what we need to really see. What are we really transitioning from the use of fossil fuel to sustainable energy sources? So these are some of the challenges, and I think the other gap that I would say is in terms of how young people are really included and other vulnerable communities in the implementation, or in fact, the drafting of these NDCs. Because sometimes what happens is we, the allied group, that is those that went to school or those that draft these policies, we will just sit under the ACs and then draft some of these things. I'm not saying that's what the government did without really consulting the people who are really faced with these problems and who actually have the traditional knowledge of these things that we are putting on paper. So that are some of the gaps that we actually sometimes have, and I think also in terms of how do we really include young people, involve young people in this entire NDC process. And I'm happy to tell you that we have someone in our midst who is really doing a great job. That is Hadija. We have been really great to have Hadija on this platform to share what she has been doing in terms of reviewing our NDCs. Where are we getting right and where are we getting wrong, and how can we really improve? She has been doing this with her organization called Care About Climate, and she has really been doing an amazing job. So it would have been really great to have her here to share more. But thank you so much. This is just what I wanted to share.
I know.
Our forest used to be what we call a sink, and now carbon sink, and now what climate tracker is saying is a source. And the difference is a sink is we had a lot of trees that at a point where we're able to trap a lot of carbon, but now because people are cutting trees, now the carbon that is stored in those trees, I don't know if when you cut a tree, it dies, and then that carbon is actually it goes because you lose that. And that is currently what we are experiencing. We have seen how the government wanted to go into agreement with the US Embassy to take part of the part, that is the monkey part, and then give it to them to build an embassy. But together with us, our consultations and everything that we did, we were able to convince both the embassy and the ministry to say, or the government, this is not a good idea because that place actually houses what we call the red colobus monkeys, which are actually on the verge of being extinct. And they are, I think, found in the Gambia and few other countries. So it should be our duty to actually protect them. But recently, we've heard the central government saying they are planning to degassette part of the Nyanabi forest and as well as this actual monkey park. But of course, our people, Mohammed and others, have done some consultation meetings with the ministry, and they've made us understand that, in fact, some of these things were things that had already been discussed even since the previous meeting. They are just trying to make sure that it is formalized and that it goes through the due diligence process. But what we are saying as young people is that some of these things that we are really compromising is what is actually affecting our NDC targets and our compatibility with the Paris Agreement. And that is just something that I wanted to shed light on. And I think most of you might have heard that over the news. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Donna. Then we'll also move on.
Thank you very much, Hydra. Thank you very much to all the participants present here today. Thank you very much to my own sister sitting next to me, who's been running after me for so long a time for me to be here in person. And Mr. Manjang has been, a partner in this development advocacy, activism to make sure our Gambian environment stays and improved on the status where it is right now. Directly to your question, Mr. Hydra, I wouldn't be able to say very well clearly as to the preparedness of the Gambian team to COP. Absolutely, I'll be at COP, but normally, for the past 15, 20 years, I've been attending COPs, but then I do attend COPs through the United Nations Environment Program. We have a special dimension, special way of doing things at the COP, different from our national contribution. And nonetheless, I am a member of the Gambia National Climate Change Communication Team, but I wouldn't be, as I said, be very well ready to tell you what the Gambia's preparedness is. But nonetheless, I know the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources have been working with a lot of other sectoral units, and they are working tremendously to make sure the Gambia stands for, the Paris Agreement, and then we want to bring them to their knees at this other COP to make sure that all the promises are to be kept. Coming back to the topic itself, climate change. Climate change is here to stay. And there is no sign we are seeing climate change moving out now. It's an anthropogenic activity. Climate change, all the problems caused by climate change is man-made. It's me, you, and all others who cause those problems. on the planet Earth. That's why we say it's here to stay. For that matter, it's here to stay because things that should bring climate problems down are not taken forth. Things that will increase the impact of climate change are things that we are doing. So it seems, we are advocating for more climate problems to come rather than solutions to that. But later one will be able to understand what I am saying. It is very important, Muhammad, for us to understand that in the galaxy, in the solar system, we have only 9 planets. And out of these 9 planets, there is only one planet where life can exist. And that is planet Earth. And it is this planet Earth that is suffering from the impact of climate change. We all believe that there is Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. But the only planet where we human beings and our animals can survive is planet Earth. And looking into the immediate dimension of planet Earth, there are 3 mediums to the planet. That is the air, land, and sea. That encompasses the environment in general. Those are the 3 mediums: the air, the land, and the sea. So the air must be protected, the land must be protected, and our seas must be protected to make a total balance of protecting the place where we are born, where we should sustain ourselves, and not only for us, but for generations to come. That's why I want to thank you so much, Muhammad, you and the organizers, the Climate Justice. I've been seeing you doing a lot of demonstrations during the COPs over there. The Gambia is a very small country, but we make a lot of good and positive noise during these COPs meetings where it has been held. But this is very, very important to underline that the youth for that matter, play the most pivotal role in any economic, physical, and political development of our world. Because if you are an elderly, you pass through a generation called the youthful stage. If you are younger, you are still hoping to join a generation called the youthful stage. So the youthful stage is in the equilibrium. We cannot go without them. All the higher positions you have, from the presidency downside, they are all preparing to hand it over to the youth. Each and every student we are seeing undergoing an economics, academic struggle or whatsoever, he or she is preparing for the youthful stage. So it is a stage that we cannot minus from our well-being of sustaining ourselves on this planet Earth. Therefore, Gambian youths are doing a very, very good job. We must applaud them, we must support them, we must give them all the need to sound like any possible positive youth organizations in this world. As I've said before, the planet Earth is the only planet where life can exist on this earth. And now we bent on destroying that planet to an extent that our whole existence on this planet Earth is now even questionable. Let's imagine it has been a lot of noise from many quarters that a meter raise in sea level rise, our capital city is doomed. What will happen with 2-meter rise? And there is no improvement anyhow to say the glaciers that are melting at the North Pole and the South Pole will stop because of the temperatures, the increased heat being caused by human activities here. Through our cars, our industries, our factories, our improved lifestyles, we are causing more mayhem to the environment than good. All of here, who is here who will not want to drive a car? We all want to drive a car. All our wives will want to drive a car. All our sons will want to drive a car. But driving a car, you must be ready that you are also contributing an amount of greenhouse gas that is going to be emitted into the atmosphere. That means you will be contributing into the warmness of our atmosphere. And that's among a list of many other activities that does so. That's why we must work very hard to make sure our mitigation factors are reduced. Mitigation factors are the factors that we are employed to increase the amount of greenhouse gas in the atmosphere, or to increase the warmth of the atmosphere. Now the atmosphere is so warmed. I could remember when we were small boys, in the morning, you cannot go to school without your mother or the grandmother warming the water, because it is so cold that we cannot even go to our school gardens. Nowadays, we don't have those things. They are gone. Temperatures have increased so badly that the atmosphere remains warm continuously. And Mohammed, that's why I said I'm not seeing any solution that will bring down those temperatures, because the solution to bring the thermometer down, the temperatures down, is the trees that will consume the greenhouse gas, the carbon dioxide that is being pushed into the atmosphere. We cut down all the trees for our selfish economic or social activities. How many trees do we see here before? When I was going to school in the early 80s, Kairaba Avenue was a forested area. You dare not to go to Old Joshua. It's full of trees. Where the NEA headquarters is called Dutakuru. It used to have sets of mango trees sets over there. All were cleared. And go to our forests. Our communal lifestyle has changed. Unsustainable utilization of our natural resources has cost us a lot. Now, instead, the trees will be there to be swallowing the warmth that the cars, the generators, that our big machines has been creating, the warmth, the greenhouse gas they've been emitted up, the trees will go and swallow them. If we have more trees, we will have lesser warmth. Lesser trees, more warmth. Now just travel from here to Jarasoma or Basse and see on the roadside how many bags of charcoal will you see on those places. Charcoal does not fall from the sky. It is as a byproduct of a tree that you cut down the tree, cut it into pieces and burn it and produce charcoal. How many trees are cut down here? Now go into all the Gambian forests. Ask the forestry department to give you a data of all the bigger trees that were here 50 years ago must have now been fallen down for timber or charcoal or any other thing. Imagine a big mahogany tree. You cut it down. The mahogany tree fell down. it fell on 7 or 8 or up to 10 other small trees. They will all be chopped off. They will all die. And you don't replace them. Only in the name of organized replacement by baby dumping trees, young trees into the bush, just to wait for the dry season to come and you burn them all again. Or we allowed our animals, domestic animals, to trash them up. But in June and July, we'll be happy to put on new t-shirts and say we are planting 1 million trees. You plant 1 million trees and you cannot protect even a single tree that you planted. Are you not baby dumping the trees?
Of course.
You are in fact causing more harm than good. Look, it's high time Gambia we change our attitude. It's high time the youth of the Gambia we stand on our feet, because all these environmental problems we are hearing, we are witnessing, will all be officially handed over to us, the youth, to take care of them. That's why the youth are to be very well prepared for. That's why at the National Environment Agency, we plan a system called Catch Them Young. Mohammed, you are aware of it. We are going back to the schools because people deliberately refuse to change their attitudes towards the environment. Environment is our well-being. People believe environment is a natural thing that has been given to us by God, so it is only God who can ask one not to do this A, B, C, D with the environment. Without sustainable utilizations of the natural resources we have with us here, I doubt if that 1% can even be met. It will not be. Because development has shown us that more greenhouse gases is now being emitted. What are our governments doing? What can we do to reduce the sovereignty on our planet, particularly on our trees? We can come up with green economies like gas, among other cooking gas, make them very, very reasonable, make them available, make them, very cheap, so that a layman can always get a 3 kilo or 6 kilo gas tank, and we can cook our attire, we can cook our food, rather than going in for charcoal and firewood. Taking the podium and, I've been vindicated. That's my first statement. I said here, responsibility must be solidified in the hands of the youth of this country, because we are going to carry the throne tomorrow. But if responsibility is hijacked from us, is denied from us, do we think we have a better future tomorrow? This is what we have been saying. And then let's go further. That is our own responsibility. We must not blame others for all the consequences we've been having pertaining to the phenomenal aspect of climate change. It is our own doing, so it is our own responsibility to come up. I've been vindicated again that the Gambian youth at COPs, they did very well. And then, you heard from them. But with this 1.5, that's a problem. And that's where the problem lies. And what can we do to make sure that the amount of gas that is being emitted, that is mitigation, is under control? There is no truth in this world, believe me, and there is no justice in this world. The Gambia will emit lesser of green gas into the atmosphere, but the brunt of the problems to go to the countries that emit lesser into the atmosphere. So where is the justice? That means you commit a small crime, you are given a bigger lash. Those guys causing the biggest crime are given a welcoming smile. That's where the problem of this whole negotiation is all about. So it is high time poorer countries, LDC countries, We come up, support our youth, support our activists. Let's empower them so that at international gatherings, they will be able to convince the international world. Right now, we say a meter. I said before, a meter rise, sea level, Banjul is doomed. And accordingly, temperatures are not dropping, they are increasing. So the liveliness of Banjul getting doomed, including the Kairaba Avenue here we are, is a possibility. May God forbid in our presence we see it. But these are all actions to mitigate those things. Remember, it's not only Banjul that is going to doom. Before Banjul dooms, the sea level will rise. I told you glaciers at the north and south pole are melting at a rate that we cannot believe. And they are contributing towards the increase in the level of the sea. So the seas will rise up. Senegambia Hotel, those luxurious hotels we have in the coastlines will all disappear. They will all be swallowed. A few years ago, going towards Banjul, you see the Muslim and the Christian cemetery? Where are they? They were all swallowed up by the sea because the sea level rise. That was why a project came to the National Environment Agency to push the sea 150 meters into the Atlantic Ocean. A ring of a bell at school signifies something, whether go into the classroom or go out of the classroom. These few days, what has been happening in Banjul? Inundation. Communities were sheltered at schools. Does that not ring a bell? And we are not contributing that hardship into the climate emission that will cause us those things. And that is Banjul. Go to our provincial Gambia. When the sea level rises, there will not be any farmlands. There wouldn't be any rice fields. In fact, there will be salt intrusions in our rice fields. Salt will cover all the farmlands we normally grow our things. That's why we say, let's improve on our adaptive strategy. We have to build up our resilience. If you want to stay here, let me just give an example I normally give. Go to Talinding or Imo town or so. There are people whose houses in the rainy season, June, when the rain starts in June, their houses in their bedroom, they will bring 3-4 cement blocks, put your bed on top of those cement blocks, because even your bedroom is inundated. You get in, you step into water before you climb on your bed. This is not a joke. This is the Gambia. And they will be there in June, July, August, September, October, November, December. When everywhere is dry, just go to Talinding, just go to Ibo town. You think rainy season is just beginning. Go to Talinding and try and attempt to dig a well there. You cannot. You soak away, you cannot. What is happening? There is underground penetration of water. So the sea level is rising. What can we do again? It's going to have an impact on our agricultural produce. If there are lesser food, what will happen? Famine come. Each and everyone will get sick. And if hunger comes, starvation is linked to it, especially if you cannot go to your farmland. That's why we say we should have adaptive strategies. In Mandinka, That's called adaptive strategy. This is what we are doing, but tomorrow we may not be able to do it. So what are we going to do that will help us do it tomorrow? That's why we have a lot of these women gardening coming up, these animal husbandry, tie and dye. Why can't we also give the youth the chance? This is what I always say. In Islam, you say sirat. The sirat of our life are the youth. You will never get old if you don't pass by through the youth. And the old people will always envy when I was a young man. What have you been doing? This is what we are saying. Let's empower the youth now. Let's give them all the abilities to work it now. So the impact continues because the sea level is rising, inundation will continue, intrusion of salt water will continue, our agriculture will fail, our hotels will come down. Then where are we heading to again? So it is very, very important as youth, we stand on our toes and work against the phenomenon of climate change. I agree with you, my brother, yes, of course. Because even at the National Environment Agency, when we strategized a few years ago, that's what we said. You cannot be talking about the smart part, but again, we are sensitization. Are we going to sensitize over the last day of this earth? No, we will never be. That's why we want to go to the schools. That is the bank of our future citizenries. We empower them. We inculcate all this sustainable environment development protections management into their heads, and they grow up with it. People will stop going to the bantabas to show things and other things about sensitization. People will not even have that time. The world is changing. The world is going at a very, very high speed. That's why you school children have been invited here, so that we will start inculcating. The National Environment Agency is collaborating with 13 schools within the GBA that I frequently visited and talked to those children. And now we expanded into the whole country. Every region we are dealing with 15 schools in all regions. And we are not doing it alone. I wish Hussein Gambia is here. I'm the first person who hold his hand and took him to St. Teresa's to start addressing school. I'm not a youth, but I am a youth. For the fact that all people I am dealing, I'm walking and talking are all youth. So who am I if I am not a youth? So that's the reality on the ground. Let's make sure the youths are empowered all the time, because we are going to give them that responsibility to solve. I can always raise my hand up in few years' time when we'll have Mohammed, Manjang, and all others who will be ministers, who will be permanent secretaries. Do you think we'll have such problems that we are having now? Because already they've been enlightened when they are at their younger stage. So by the time we give them the responsibility to take care of the problems of our country, definitely they know what they will be doing. This is what we've been advocating for. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for listening. So we want to give the chance to ask a question to the audience. If you have any question that you want to move forward, because one engagement will clearly not be a one-side conversation. If it is clear you have a question that you want to know about environment, about climate change, they will definitely answer those questions. So the media, you guys have the chance now to, be the best for whatever you want, like any competition to ratify whatever you want to do. Now is the right time for you to engage in that and get the right into this concept. So the floor is yours. If any of you have any questions.
national security from certain disbursements by some powerful users who have been guilty of spying so far, I've never seen any of this benefits happening in the economy as a result of some of these damages that we afford, as a result of the treaty was and power governments this was for this law of the this is something that I'm very much.
Yeah, can you repeat? It is
So what I was saying is that whether the powerful country like Ginseng or Indonesia, where Gambia needs any support or financial support from them, as far as Gambia is considered as an elite country. So that being the case, then whether our police waiting for based on are you aware of that? Maybe I think also we have because he has been working with and we received the where and he's not aware that probably they are aware and we are so maybe you guys can think about that. Maybe we have maybe 3 questions and from there you can answer also. So anyone can from there is from participant. Anyone question? We have any other questions? Students, we have any questions you want to ask about anything or anything? So I think that we are all good for now. There is no question, guys. We want to take 3 questions because today is Friday, so that we can avoid just to one session might be 90 recently. So if we have that, we have a question now. We can ask. Okay. So maybe then I will give the panelists the chance to answer. Yes, sir. Yes,
Good morning. My name is Nelson.
yeah. I'm a senior civil servant working directly under the government, but not directly working on the UNFCCC. So I may not actually know what actually, of course, we've been benefiting. But let me tell you, politics, the whole world is built on politics. Be economic, be finance, be environment, be anything is built on politics. The European Union, they say they have their contributions towards climate change in diverse ways, in different ways. One of the ways is they send projects to least developing countries. In the Gambia, I think you are all aware that shortly we've been planting over thousands of coconut trees around the coastline. We've launched in Sanyang and in Bakau coconut planting on the beach sides, and we also have mangroves planting on the shorelines within all the coastal region in this country. Directly, it is said that it is being supported by GCCA project of the National Environment Agency. But that GCCA project is part and parcel of a climate change support project from the European Union. The European Union, this is how many of the other developed countries will now don't want to support directly give support to governments, but they will give support to institutions, NGOs, and community-based organizations to do those implementation. So there are a lot of many other supports like the GCCA, that's the Global Climate Change Alliance Plus, is a European Union climate change support project to the Gambia, but being implemented by the National Environment Agency. So there are a lot of other things like that. But to say there is this amount of $2 billion in package, that wouldn't be easy to be given to any country. As far as I know, Madam Kanela, what it is.
Okay, I just want to elaborate more on his question. Basically, he said that nobody is at the ministry, everybody is going to come. The COP, each and everybody has a target. Each and every individual that you see applying for the COP has a mission and a goal to achieve. You understand? I personally, I benefited from the COP. I got a 1 year training on negotiation through the COP. That was my first time I went there. And I got a lot of other opportunities. NGOs that are going there, they are having grants. Some of their grants is they lobby them through the COP. You have the Green Climate Fund, the Adaptation Fund, the RICA project, the World Bank project. These are all projects that we are lobbying, that we are being negotiated, because Gambia go there and present, this is the Gambia, this is what we are doing. And what can we have? This, all these other projects that you see, this is how they divide them. And Gambia, as we all know, our financial skills cannot be compared to other African countries. In G7, you understand? These developed countries. But then, Gambia can afford to get a pavilion of its own, an office space. You understand? Where Gambia will go and sell itself.
Okay.
This is something that has not been happening. You understand? But for this year, Gambia happens to get that for free without the government spending any money. You understand? So if you have an ideology of saying that I'm like, what is the government getting from this cup? The government is getting a lot from this cup. Because we are going in line with our enemies. And that is what we want to fulfill. And those are the things that will showcase there in order to generate more. I bet no one will tell you I'm going to stop and come empty handed. No. Unless if you don't have anything to do. But to be quite candidate, like Daura in the lives of Kimo Fadi, they really know the great Gambia and so the Molo Association as there. These are all NGOs that are fully benefiting from COP and the KID project as well. So I think it's like you need to do research and understand the point of what you're going to do. So because I can say one thing that is lacking in this country is research. People don't read and they don't do research. You understand? It's not that you can just go here and learn. No, nothing comes easy like that. But you basically have to do research and see what are the findings. This is what I want to work on in my country. How will I get there? How will I achieve it? What can I do to get this into my country? These are some of the key things, you understand? All right.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just also wanted to highlight, of course, myself, I have my downside when it comes to COP, because a lot of people believe that the COPs are organized for people to just go have fun and then come back, maybe a travel fantasy or whatever. But I think one thing people need to understand is we all know as a country we are suffering when it comes to climate change. And now a convergence that has been organized by the whole world for people to go and discuss the challenges that we are faced with and then come up with solutions. And as much as you believe that probably you are not causing the problem and you are the most affected, should that one to say, if I go there, I will not probably, they will not listen to me, let me not just go. When you have an opportunity to go and then speak out the challenges that you are faced with, and likely, because it's a place, I mean, I'll give you an example of the Africa Climate Week, where Africa has really benefited from these developed worlds with billions of dollars. I cannot give an accurate amount, but if you search online what the African countries were able to achieve or get from the Africa Climate Week that just happened 2 months ago in Nairobi, it will give you an understanding of why these convergences are really important. This is a place where organizations lobby. For me, it has been a transformational journey for me, starting from last year to where I am this year. My first COP, when I went to COP, I did not pay a budget, it has been funded for me. And it's through my engagement at last year's COP that this year too, I have been selected out of 11,000 people around the world as one of the 100 delegates that COP28 itself is funding to be part of the negotiation process. So if I had not gone to COP, I wouldn't have had that opportunity last year. So that's why he's saying it's not always about the finances, but also the knowledge that you get from that COP and the connections and so on. Of course, COP has its problems. I mean, it's a lot of politics. If you go there, the developed nations will be fighting for their interests, and the underdeveloped nations will also be fighting for their interests. But does that mean that because those people probably are powerful more than you when it comes to finances, and in fact, when it comes to education and so on, you will see you see that as, let's say, something that probably if you go, you will not get anything out of. Let me just not go. When you can actually go, lobby, and get some funding out of that. So that is really important. And see, gave you a good example. This year, Gambia has a pavilion for free. NEA, sometimes when they post something, I will complain and all of that. We do that. But it doesn't always mean that we have to be, against our government all the time. Sometimes if they do what is right, we have to praise them. But if they do what is not correct, we also have to call out to them. That is how, constructive activism is all about. And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to impress. Let me repeat it again because I think it's here. No, but if you want to be really constructive in your argument or in your activism, try to conduct the right things that government has done well, and those that they did not do well, you can make your recommendations and call out to them. That is okay. But to say that what do we derive from? He did not. Thank God he did not even ask to say because we don't get anything from COP, we should not go there. I think he was asking what do we get from COP, and I think these insights will really help for people to understand what really do we gain from COP. And this year too, the minister is coordinating with us this day. When we go there, we will do some bilaterals. If you have ideas and so on that you think is good for our nation, bring it forward. We will put it out to our partners and see what can we do and what can we get out of it. So I think that is really something that is important for everybody to know.
Let me just add a little thing on that. This pavilion that is being created this year is perfect.
Yeah.
I remember then you must be small boys. The Kyoto Protocol.
Yeah.
We were there at the Kyoto Protocol. We were doing the signing over there. I was one of very few West African citizens who attended. Then by trade, I am a journalist, representing the Gambia over there. Pavilions are very, very expensive to maintain. And you have the most important personalities of all the COPs will visit the pavilions. So it is a greater opportunity for any country that has it. We can, if I am you, if I am the Ministry of Environment, you come and collect all these things. All these things will play a very pivotal role in our pavilion back over there. Because Gambian pavilion, Gambia in general, anywhere Gambians go outside this country, let me tell you, I travel a lot outside the country. Gambians, our hands are up. Yes. I was clapping for Mohammed and Kemo and all others shouting at the top of my voice like I was not a dignitary some time ago. For the fact that the Gambian youths come and raise the Gambian flag on top of developed countries. So that's the reality on the ground. And I've seen the ministry has been going around with all partners, making some videos of all what they've been doing in as far as climate change is concerned. And it's all going to be played at that stand. So that's a bigger opportunity we got. What I'm also trying to do for best lobbyists, if you go, lobby. The Arabs have money. Lobby from them now that the youth of the Gambian youth will, not the Gambian government, the Gambian youth will want to have their own pavilion in the COP that will follow this one. And who knows, it may be possible. And then all these materials could be placed there for sure. Thank you so much.
You have anything to share? So, alright guys, I think we are almost at the level of the event because I think we're supposed to travel because of this program. It's suspended for now and it's serious. We really appreciate and thank you always for being with us. And then so I wanted to call Mariam Jallo. I want to call Mariam to really go to the mark for because I've been talking and it's also one of our most amazing committee ever that make sure that we have a successful event. So she will do the closing remarks. I have to pause her. Okay. So she will do the closing remarks for us. Since there is no any more question from the floor, the student before we wrap up, because when she speaks or speak, then we have a photo and then sort of the grades by the end.
Yeah, good afternoon once again. Good afternoon once again. Members of the high table, Mr. Activity.
I'll king his son. Don't leave the chef there. The chef is one.
Our climate justice advocate, I would really like to take this opportunity and thank you all for coming. We call you the do this on the short, but we have to do this because there is no time. Focus is at the right corner. We see this opportunity to thank you all for your gesture and your receipt of call wholeheartedly. You came here and you delivered to expectation. The students, the media, and the organizing committee, I would love to take this opportunity and thank you all once again. I say big thank you